emotionally unavailable.
Okay, well, it's very nice to meet you. I appreciate you being
You
here.
too.
So I read what you wrote about what you'd like to contribute, and we'll get to that. But when a therapist has I'll say, a focus on trauma in relationships, I just have to ask you this because of
Yes.
my own personal experience being a therapist who, like, has had her relationship shit. Um,
Hmm.
are you drawn to that because did you used to be a little bit of a shit show in relationships, or?
I think I definitely have had a relationship that was not healthy at all and realized that there's better, that we don't have to settle. And I think that's a lot of times what happens is that we end up settling in these relationships because we've been in them for so long. I was in like a 4-year relationship that started in high school,
Oh,
and our brain is still developing.
yes.
And it's very easy to get stuck in those and to fall into those really unhealthy patterns. So
Mhm.
that was a big one for me where I actually took a year to just be single and
Wow, good. I
not
mean,
be
I'm
with
glad that
anyone,
most
not
people
not
don't.
date any. Yeah, I mean, I needed to rediscover myself because I felt like there were a lot of pieces of me that were dying in that relationship. And I
Mhm.
wasn't growing, I wasn't thriving, I was just maintaining barely. So, really it took that year to just, develop my female relationships and just true friendships, and just really needed to make a shift and really get back in tune with who am I? What do I like to do outside of this other person? So
Yeah.
after that, I ended up, getting my husband and I, we went to high school together, but we didn't
Oh,
date in
you
high
did?
school. Yeah,
Yeah,
we
you
didn't
just
date in
knew each
high
other?
school. We just knew each other, and we ended up getting reconnected kind of after that year point. And I'm really grateful because that's when I was able to be in a better spot to approach a relationship from a healthier perspective, not feeling like I'm lacking anything too. So that was
Yeah.
really important.
So I
Mhm.
do wonder, though, hearing you say that, I'm wondering,
Yeah.
like, obviously, it's such a common story for somebody in a relationship that started in high school to end up in
Mhm.
a toxic situation just because I think I haven't seen a lot of those couples be able to transcend the development. Like they kind of stay
Mhm.
stuck emotionally and developmentally where the relationship started. So it's not uncommon,
Yes.
but I do wonder if you had any trauma prior to that relationship that like created subconscious narratives around why you would a not be worthy enough to leave, but also why you would need to
Mhm.
stay, why you would what the idea of relationships is. And just sometimes we have this belief that we have to stay because, well, you don't just abandon a relationship, and it's like all relationships aren't meant to last forever. So I'm just wondering if you had personal
Yeah.
history also that kind of was going on inside of that.
Yeah, for me, it was really just being naive, to be honest. Like, I hadn't really had much conversations from those around me about, when to leave a relationship, when to stay. Sometimes you hear people say, oh, he's not good for you, or she's not good for you, or
Sure.
there's better. But I didn't really know what that meant. Like, I mean, I grew up with both of my parents. They did end up separating as I was entering college. But it's still, I was just naive. Like I said, I really didn't have a clear understanding on how do you do relationships. Because
Yeah.
even with your parents, you don't necessarily understand the ins
Mm-mm.
and outs of what is healthy, what is toxic. There's just not really that clear understanding there. How should you respect your body? You're kind of just told do and don't in a lot of
Yeah.
cases,
Yeah.
but it's really not having that clear understanding of what's good for me. But I felt that it wasn't good after a while and knew that I needed a change. But you kind of feel like, oh, I committed 4 years of my life to this person, even though that's nothing in the grand scheme.
Oh, I
But
know, but that sunk cost
when
fallacy,
you're
ooh, it'll
young,
get you.
yes, it will, and how we justify and validate and, you feel like, "Well, this is supposed to work." Who told you that? I
Yeah,
don't know, right? I think the media
right.
plays a big role in relationships and what we see and how things are supposed to be, and that totally
Uh-huh.
warps a lot of things as well. So, even if you grew up seeing some healthy relationships, you don't know the ins and outs, and it doesn't mean it's an automatic that you'll
Right.
end up on either.
I almost think it's more common than not to be in a somewhat unhealthy, even if it's not toxic, an unhealthy relationship dynamic. And I will say, this is where I really just praise social media for being a thing. Like, I know we're all
Sure.
addicted and, we need to get off our
Yep.
screens, but I'll tell you, I'm so thankful for the information that's out there because I didn't even know about trauma really
Sure.
before Instagram. I mean, that was my first
Sure.
real I heard about PTSD in veterans in like the late 90s,
Mhm.
and that's all I knew about it. Oh, okay. I didn't realize I had complex post-traumatic stress. Like, oops. I mean, it's
Mhm.
taken
Right,
years to
that's a thing.
unravel. Yeah. And so,
Mhm.
hey, I'm so glad there's all these random people. Because if you don't like the way this person says it, you can listen to this person. But there's all these people that are
Exactly.
explaining what we're talking about now. We have podcasts. There's so much more than just a movie that's never going to give you the right information.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
what was I gonna ask? It wasn't ask, but I was thinking too that why it's important the work that you do around trauma and relationships and trauma in
Mhm.
relationships is because
Mhm.
trauma really does separate you from all the things that you need to understand to be healthy in general, let alone inside of a relationship. And in hindsight,
Definitely.
I'm sure that you can see like the things that you listed off. Oh,
Mhm.
yeah, not having any sense of self outside of this relationship, uh, all the
Mhm.
self-abandoning I'm doing to stay inside of this relationship, all things
Yep.
that happen related to trauma too.
Mhm. Exactly, exactly, and like I said, I think we just kinda get stuck, and I think underneath that stuckness is really that fear, right?
Yeah.
The fear that, "Is this really as good as it gets? Can I
Ooh,
find something better?"
yeah.
Right?
Mhm.
Um, "Is
Am
this
I
how it's
enough to be
supposed
on
to
my
be?"
own? I mean, financially,
Exactly.
like, to
Right,
navigating
and
the
the
world.
fear
Yeah.
yeah, the fear of abandonment, the fear of, what is life like without this person? How do I do that? Am I able to do that? Because that doesn't match the concept that I've built up over the years, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
So I think it's realizing that, you don't have to be stuck. There are so many other people out there, but also you need to be okay with you before, you even consider someone else. And I think that's a piece that many people are feeling incomplete and they're trying to have another person complete them. And that is not the best setup for that.
Yeah, I'm guilty of that. I was really, really psycho. And listen, when Jerry Maguire came out and she said, "You complete me," I've never felt more seen. And I was like, yeah, so that's okay then. Like, oh, okay, yeah,
Mhm.
because that's how I feel. So, and I think it's
Sure.
hard for people to understand what we say sometimes whenever we're like, you need to be okay with you. I didn't recognize how unokay I was with myself for sure. The only
That's a
thing I
good
could
point.
really identify is that I knew I didn't like necessarily downtime by myself. I knew that I couldn't really
Mhm.
spend time by myself, but I certainly had
Mhm.
no idea how much I disliked myself.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that is one of the key kind of, light bulbs to realize that maybe you're not okay with yourself if you don't like being alone.
Right.
Even just the downtime from the day, if you feel like you have to be doing something to occupy
Mhm.
yourself,
Mhm.
that silence is scary, right? If silence feels too scary for you, that may be a cue that, hey, maybe I'm not actually as okay as I thought,
Yes.
right? I think that's one light bulb for sure if you're afraid of silence because you don't know what thoughts are going to come. I know the
Mhm.
second light bulb that comes to mind is when you look in the mirror, especially like, when you're exposed after a shower, or something like that. What are the thoughts that are going
Mhm.
through your mind, right? Is it really negative? Is it really putting ourselves down? Is it uplifting? Is it like, yeah, girl, work it? you know,
Right.
what is that? What are those thoughts as we're looking at ourselves? What are we focusing on? Right? So I think
Yeah.
being aware of that inner dialogue too, especially when we're most exposed, is really key as well.
Yes, yes.
Mhm.
Man, yeah, I had some super negative self-talk. In fact, whenever I was trying to start, like the very beginning of any sort of like self-love, self-appreciation, anything, was I recognized like I say a lot of rude stuff to myself. And I really had a very
Yeah.
poor body image, but just self-image in general. And I had to like I was like, well, I'm not gonna lie and be like, I like this about me whenever I knew I didn't, I'm not gonna affirm a lie. So I was like,
Yes.
"What's one
Yes.
thing that you can focus on, though? If you're going to look in the
Yep.
mirror and you're gonna say something, what's one thing that you could say?" And I was like, "I like my eyes." And literally that's where I started, where I would if I
Exactly.
was going I really didn't I spent time away from the mirror intentionally for a little while I was
Mhm.
doing this
Mhm.
because it was a trigger and I knew that I wasn't managing it well.
Yep.
So I had to like slowly start giving myself compliments outside of the mirror. And then now it's funny because
Mhm.
just this I've gained so much weight and just this morning I remember thinking after the shower like I feel pretty neutral about I mean I'm not happy that I've gained weight. I don't feel great
Mhm.
physically, but it is what it
Yep.
is and I'll deal with it. But like I felt real neutral about it looking in the mirror and I was like, good
Mm.
job. Okay, great. I mean, because you don't have to love that
Yeah.
you've gained a bunch of weight, but I don't hate it either?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think you brought up a really good point about, in essence, you were talking about affirmations,
Mhm.
right? And a lot of people hear, yes, say good things about yourself, speak life to yourself, speak love, all of these things. However, if it's not genuine,
Yeah.
your subconscious is not going to accept it. You're
It
going
knows.
to reject
It
it
knows when you
right
don't mean
away.
it. Mhm.
Yes, so you can't just be saying these like, "Oh yeah, I'm amazing and I am beautiful and I just love myself," if you know that none of that is even close to being true, right? It's important to start with, what do I actually believe, right?
Mhm.
What's something that I can believe, even if it's, I'm getting better day by day,
Yeah. Or
even something
even if the
small
beginning is
or
just stop
Yep,
saying rude stuff about yourself. I am really big
exactly.
about because I always thought self-deprecating humor was just so funny? And that's not the truth.
Oh,
We all know why people do that, but that was what I
yep,
chose to do to
yep.
mask. And I did it
Mhm.
so much that it became like
Mhm.
so much a part of what I was talking about. So then whenever started like doing all this stuff,
Yes.
I was like, okay, I do not say bad things about myself. So now, no matter, I rarely happens anymore, but if it does, and I make a little jokey joke, I stop and I go, actually, that's not true, and I shouldn't have said that. And I do not care who I'm talking to. I will do that, even if it's like me and I stubbed my toe and I was like, oh, that was so stupid. I don't care if no one's around. I'm like, it wasn't stupid, it was an accident, and then move right on. Like I'm very careful about the way
Yes.
I program my subconscious now.
And that's huge, and it's doing it when no one's there, right?
Mhm.
Because if you practice it when no one's there, it'll be much easier when other people are, because you're building yourself up. That inner dialogue is huge
Yes.
in how we show up in the world. But yes, like you said, something that's a simple mistake, you stub your toe, of course you didn't do it on purpose,
Right.
you know?
Well,
And
I'm
it
sure really
doesn't mean
smart
you're an
people stub their
idiot.
toes.
Right, right. But when you've had that practice of, like you said, the self-deprecation, it's so easy to
So
default
easy.
to that and
Mhm.
make it something personal about who I am
Yes.
rather than it
Yes.
being something outside of me, right?
Yeah, but this was really my
Mhm.
first step too into being able to offer that to others because I was such a judgmental person before. But the nicer I've
Mhm.
spoken to myself, the less I've had those thoughts
Yes.
of others. And if I do, I'm so aware of them immediately. And I recognize that
Mhm.
I'm doing it out of fear of something. And so when I start to get really judgy, I'll be like, what's wrong? What, why are we not offering them what we know we need? And they're not any different than us.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, and I've learned that the things that we dislike in other people are the things we dislike in ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's really our own projection.
Yeah.
That because we don't wanna look in the mirror, as we were just talking about,
Yes.
and it's easier to point that out in someone else rather than to analyze our own behavior.
Yes.
So, yes. Yes, I think that's huge.
Man. Okay, so
Mhm.
you became a therapist. Were you drawn to therapy
Yes.
after that relationship then?
Not right away. I thought I wanted to be a physical therapist,
Oh,
because I had torn my
really?
A Yeah, I didn't really know much about therapy, to be
Okay.
honest. Yeah, you see a little bit on TV, but I really didn't have much exposure. So I tore my ACL in high school and went through the rehab, and I appreciated the encouragement. And, it was always all of the soft skills of therapy, but not realizing that therapy was a thing.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, so so I loved how they would encourage you and help, motivate you and let you know that you can do this and just being that support. I loved that about the physical therapy. And then when I got to college, I was in charge of a floor of freshman women when I was in the upper levels. And I would do work with them on, hey, let's remove the mask. Let's be our authentic self. All of those things. Again, not realizing that, yeah, you can do that for a job.
Yeah, yeah.
um, so when the biology classes were not my best
I
friend,
was about to say the
and that
science gotcha. You said, "This is the
I
worst
loved
shit."
chemistry. I loved
You
chemistry.
did?
But I did actually, yes, it was very interesting to me, but the plant biology, I was like, "Okay, I'm sleeping on this," like, no. So I just felt like I needed to make a pivot,
Mhm.
and I, had a friend, it was actually a male colleague that was in the social work field, and which is rare, and he mentioned, like,
Yes.
"Hey, have you thought about social work or therapy?" And I was like, "Oh, actually, no." Started exploring that a little bit more, and it was a perfect fit.
So are
So,
you
I
an
think we all have our
LCSW?
own. Yes, yes,
Oh,
LCSW.
I don't know if I knew that. I don't know if that's what the email said or not, but I had forgotten it. But yeah, so am I.
Nice, nice, yes. So, I love the versatility that you can do with social work and doing
Yes.
therapy in so many different settings. I also work with older
Mhm.
adults, doing therapy, like, in nursing homes, been doing that for over 10 years.
Yeah.
I worked in the addiction field, with people getting out of treatment, whether it was eating disorders or trauma or substances or anything like that. Currently, I do couples therapy with my husband. He's a life coach. So we'll do couples therapy as a team. Then I
That's
also
so
focus on
cool.
high achieving women seeking more fulfillment. So it's nice. And I also juvenile corrections too. I've done that before as well.
Oh my
So,
gosh, you really
and
have done every little thing, haven't
yeah,
you?
yeah,
Yeah.
domestic
I do
violence.
love
I've,
that though. I love that you're able
yeah.
to.
Me too, me too. You're not limited to a clinic or anything
Well,
like
because
that.
it's
So
also
I've just
so hard to figure out what you feel super led to because you wanna help people, you wanna help people in this way.
yes.
But like I used to
Mhm.
think that I would love working with children. Let me tell you, I really don't. I really don't.
Mm-mm.
Um
No. I
I
love my own,
right, right. And
but other than
I liked
that,
being a school counselor with kids because it was a
mm,
different, way of working with kids. I didn't like the system at all that was set up around
mhm,
that, but doing the stuff that I did with the kids, I liked that. So I thought I would like doing therapy with kids. Hated it so much because it triggers me because
yeah,
you can't teach them the things that you can teach an adult and you're just teaching them how to cope with living with shit parents basically. And
mhm,
it's different if you're doing
Yeah.
grief therapy with a child than it is to, a kid who's
Yes.
come from trauma. And I'm like, I cannot. I can come see me when you're 18 and you need to figure out how
Right?
to
How
recover
to
from
function.
that, okay? Because I hated it. I really d and then
Same,
the way kids
yeah.
manipulate and lie and get all, bitchy with you for no reason, like, all of it. I was like, "Ew, that Did you know that Emotionally Unavailable is 100% produced in-house? Just me, no team, no producers, just, my love for yapping and honestly helping other people. So, if you've ever been touched by the show and you wanna give back, this is your chance. Just go subscribe to the Patreon, grab some merch, grab a workbook. You can get all of that at my link tree in the show notes, and I appreciate every single one of you and all of your support. This is not my vibe. And prior to getting licensed, I worked actually prior to education, I did like 10 years as a hospice social worker and then
Okay.
maintained
Yep.
part-time doing bereavement work for like 10 not 10 years. Well, actually a while that I did. I just
Mhm.
left that in October. So I've had a few different variations too, but I was afraid of the juvenile situation. I was like, "No."
Mhm.
Um, but I can see how you've landed on couples.
Yeah, yeah, I love being able to do it with my husband because, like, that dynamic together
Yeah.
where both of us are, approaching it, and he may think of something that maybe I didn't or vice versa, and we're able to play off
Yeah.
of each other. I think if it was just me by myself, I don't think I would purely focus on couples. I would lean more heavy on what I'm already doing with the high achieving women, seeking more fulfillment and
Right.
emotional clarity and grief and trauma. I would probably stay in that camp, but I appreciate the balance of perspectives that we're able to offer
Oh,
in our
yeah.
work with our couples. So I really enjoy that. And they really enjoy that too, just being able to
I bet.
get more than one perspective. So it doesn't feel like someone is taking sides.
Well, and that's the
Um,
part I don't like is because when I register
yeah.
it on someone's face and I know that they feel like, because in 1 minute, I am taking your side because I'm saying
Mhm.
that's the healthier perspective, and then in the next minute, I'm taking your side, but that's
Right.
just the way I feel about it. I'm not taking anyone's side. I'm here as an impartial person, but I know they don't get it,
Right.
and I know they take the feedback personally, and they do
Yes.
not
Yes.
I don't like the way I feel when I see their feelings get hurt.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you do it does that tug of war that you can feel, and you're really being very careful, walking on eggshells, trying to be, cautious on how we explain something, how you
Uh-huh.
call something out, to raise that awareness too, because I mean, feelings are complicated,
Absolutely, and I'm gonna be honest,
right?
eggshells are not my forte. I used to be beautiful at eggshells and caution. I am not anymore, and I kinda let
Yep.
clients know that right up front, like, I have
Yeah.
no desire to be that, so if you
Mhm.
get into this and you realize I'm not for you, you're not gonna hurt my feelings, like, you should absolutely find someone.
Yep.
I don't really ever lose clients from it, but I
Mhm.
want them to know because I do sometimes say it and usually I preface it with, "Well, I can't really find a gentler way to say this, so I'm just gonna say it like this."
Yeah.
I mean, I think too, rapport building is important and they know
Oh,
how
yeah.
much I care
Oh, yeah.
about them,
Yep.
and that's not coming from a
Yep.
place of judgment.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm. And when you have that rapport, you can be more honest and direct.
Yes.
So and that's my style too. I love to be just honest, straight up. Let's just be real, right? You're in therapy to grow, right?
Yeah.
You're in here not to just have someone be a yes person, right?
Right.
And just validate everything you're saying. I'm like, hey, can we be honest here for a minute? Did that get you the result you were looking for?
Exactly. Exactly. One time I was like, "Honey, I'm not gonna lie to you. That was you being avoidant and paying this
Hmm.
person back for what this last person did. That's just the truth. You don't have to be mad
Right.
at yourself for it, but you gotta
Right.
say it out loud, you know?"
Mhm. Mhm. Exactly, and
I
those are
love
the
it.
sessions that yes, yes, they experience the most growth in those moments too, and I think
Yes,
people appreciate when you
yes.
are just honest, when you are just real. Um, That's where my closest relationships with clients are the ones where we can just be honest.
My big message
Mhm.
for therapists is your authenticity is just as important as anyone else's. And, when I
Yes.
do uh any sort of talk or symposiums or anything, I'm always talking about how, like, first of all, you can only meet people at your current level of healing. Personal development is
Mhm.
professional development in all professions, but particularly for the helpers of the world. You
Oh,
better make
yeah.
sure that you're constantly checking your own, you know unconscious bias, negativity bias,
Mhm.
subconscious narratives around why you're doing what you do. Like, I don't ever want to stop growing ever.
Right.
And so I
Yep.
feel like that needs to be a tenet of your life if you're in a helping field like us.
Mhm. Yeah, and they say if you're not growing, you're dying. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, it's the truth that, yes, we have to be willing to face our own stuff. Because if
Mhm.
you don't, it's gonna come out somehow.
Oh,
And you may
yeah.
be triggered unaware, you're crying with
Mhm.
the client, but it's not in support of them, it's about your own.
Yeah. No,
And
that's
that
so real, and there is a difference. I have absolutely wept when
Yes.
somebody told me a traumatic
Yes.
story, I have, but
Yes.
I can't imagine being like, "Me too," you know what I mean? But you
Mhm.
know that there's
Mhm.
people who do stuff like that
Yeah.
because 'cause they're so unhealed.
Right, right. They shouldn't start be talking about their own stuff if someone didn't invite that conversation. I remember I was training to be a therapist. So I'm doing therapy and I'm under supervision, and I was at a like a sexual assault clinic at this point. So again, all this intense work, right?
Yeah.
Um, but there was someone where she was dealing with the grief of losing her cat.
Mm.
And interestingly, at the time, my cat had also passed away.
Oh.
But so it was really interesting. I'm in there, I'm processing my own as I'm hearing her share that, and I'm just like, interesting. Do I share that or not? Is that helpful or not? I was just kind of reflecting, trying to gauge what she may need. And I chose not to say anything. I chose to just keep the focus on her, her own healing, her own processing. And I'm really glad I did, because she made a comment about, when I tell people my cat died, then they start talking about their pets. And now I feel like I have to care about you instead of dealing with my own grief.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So I was really glad I kept silent on that, because it would have been a distraction. And that would have taken away from her. It wouldn't have been the helpful information that we think it may be. No, it would have been taking away from her own healing process in that moment, because now she has to pretend that she cares about your cat that she doesn't even know.
She don't give a shit about your cat. Okay, this is
She does
leading
not.
into a place that I really wanna go. So I'm glad that we're talking about this because I knew grief was going to be a topic that we were, talking about today because you have experienced a
Yes.
traumatic loss in the last year, as have I.
Hmm.
And so I'm kind of learning what really makes me feel that way within grief because the thing that I've learned more than ever is grief really is this experience. It's not a feeling, it's an experience, but it also shines
Yep.
this big fat spotlight on all the issues you had prior to the loss. And the
Hmm.
big spotlight that it really has been shining for me is well, just the subconscious narratives that I have that cause me to push people away to keep myself
Hmm.
safe. And I've drawn a lot of parallels between my first loss that I had at 15 when my dad died of a morphine overdose
Mm,
to now losing my son
mm.
a few months ago, also to an overdose. But the
I'm
big
sorry for that.
parallel is that that's where it started, that I felt really
Mhm.
unsafe sharing. And I believed very wholeheartedly nobody showed up for me during that time. Now, were they perfect? No, they were
Mm,
15-year-old friends, so no. But they were absolutely showing up. But because I was so not used to allowing support or love or nurturing in my life, it felt like
mhm,
freaking danger and it hurt. Like, I can't really, I know
Yeah.
people love to use the word crunchy these days. I guess that's a good way to say it. It was just, I didn't like it. And so as that's
Yeah.
come up a lot in the last 3 months, some of it's valid for sure. When there are some things people say that while I forgive them because I know what the intent was, you still wish they'd just shut up.
Mhm. Yep.
But then there's other things where it's just like, it's not that that should or shouldn't bother me, but I'm just noticing everything bothers me. And so that shouldn't be the
Yeah.
reason that I'm pushing people away.
Exactly. Yeah, again, my condolences for your loss.
Thank you.
Those are huge and really hard, especially when you feel like it could have been prevented.
Mhm.
I think those sorts of losses really hurt, because we're also battling with, gosh, it didn't have to go that way. So I just want to acknowledge that. But yes, I think grief brings up our own stuff, our own insecurities. It really puts them on the table. It's also pieces
Mhm.
about as a therapist, and when you go through grief, how are you supposed to be? You're
Yes.
supposed to be the strong one. You're supposed to be the one to hold up other people. But are you taking breaks when you need to? Are you stepping away?
Right.
Are you taking a day off if it's a really hard day and I just can't think of other people today. I need to take care of myself, right? So I think there are pressures as a therapist when you're going through your own grief of how you're supposed to show up for other people,
Mhm.
but don't always show up for ourselves in the way that is needed.
Yeah, I think for me, immediately, I recognized I would never survive this if I do anything that I'm dreading to do. I can't
Hmm.
dread anything, so I dropped some clients. Anyone who was, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
inconsistent, I dropped them. Anyone that I just didn't
Hmm.
feel that super connected with, I dropped them because I
Okay.
can't have any conversations that don't light me up. And it's only the people
Yeah.
who are willing to go deep into their shit and get real and
Hmm.
let me be real. Like, I don't want any other kind of conversation. So, I that
Yep.
did help, was to drop some clients, and obviously, like, I love doing this, so this is a great source of light for me too, is to be on the podcast.
Absolutely.
Um,
Yeah.
but that's the only way I'm able to show up as a therapist is because I'm not dreading any of it.
Yeah.
Some of my clients are my very OG ones that came to me whenever I first started to practice.
Hmm.
Some are new, but we're
Hmm.
just vibing. And so as long as we're vibing, I'm good. I can show
Hmm.
up because I can cancel a podcast in the morning and be okay to do something in the afternoon, whatever. I did have to last week cancel a whole day, but yeah, I think that's a good
Hmm.
point about taking care of yourself. I think that's true in grief at all, especially when you, like, are a parent and experiencing any kind of loss and you have
Hmm.
these other people that you're caring for while you're taking care of yourself. Oh, that's some nasty
Yeah.
territory.
Oh, it's rough. It's rough. Yes, because I have an 8-year-old daughter, and the grief that I went through was losing a very close friend to suicide.
Mhm.
And that was, like, exactly a year ago, a few weeks ago.
Oh, wow.
And, it was really hard because my daughter, she's met that person and everything too. So telling her that they passed away, just because my daughter is very empathic. She
Yeah.
is very in tune with what's going on. I can't fake
Yeah.
anything. There are moments I'm trying to
Yeah.
put her to bed, and she's like, "Oh, are you thinking about your friend?" You know?
Mm.
And
You're like,
I'm like,
"Ooh."
"Yeah. Yeah, I am." Like, I had to just be honest, right?
Yeah.
Because they're watching us, right? We're modeling for them how we cope with grief, how we cope with difficult things. If I pretend that I'm fine when I know I'm not, they can read right through that. They see the truth,
Yes,
and it's like,
and
"Okay,
but when the message is incongruent about anything truly, like,
yes,
when my
yes,
boys were little, I had friends who hid the fact, like, we were all chain smokers, 'kay? But I had friends who hid that from
mhm,
their kids. I didn't because I was like,
yeah,
well, that's a lot of work for like, I'm going on the porch.
Mhm.
I'm not trying to like, like it was a whole thing. And
Yes.
I just started to realize the fear and anxiety that you put in a child when you're being incongruent, when they know
Yeah, that's
something
huge.
and you are lying about it in
Mhm.
any way, whether it's by omission or just flat out lying,
Mhm.
then they're left to figure out why. How good do you
Right.
think they are at figuring out why? You know?
Not great. Yeah, they're gonna
Yes,
default to blaming themselves. They're gonna think
absolutely.
I did
Something's
something
wrong with
wrong
me.
and
Mhm.
hence childhood trauma.
Yes,
Right? And
absolutely.
like how it's that, the conclusions that they come to about, well, maybe they don't want to tell me because I'm the problem,
Yeah.
right? That's just how their little brains are trying to figure all this out. So when we're not being transparent, it just leaves them to put the pieces together and the pieces don't fit,
At all, at
right?
all,
So they're
and
forcing
these
it.
are things that people really think like, because I've worked in, death, dying, and grief for so many years, I'm always the go-to
Mhm.
person that people come to ask for advice if somebody's dying or how to talk to their kid about somebody that's dying or died, and so often I I
Mhm.
see them, well, not wanting to use the words dead or dying, and
Yeah.
also, like, wanting to not say the how, like, well, they were sick or whatever, and I'm like, "Okay, but they didn't have a cold, they had cancer. And so what's gonna happen is
Right.
if you say they're sick, this child is already gonna be freaking out
Mm.
and worrying. They now know people died. So they're
Yes.
looking for safety here. So if you say they were just sick, every time one of you sneezes, you're gonna activate their nervous system because they're gonna think, "Is this
Yes.
the time that you die from being sick?"
Right.
So many things, and I'm like,
Right.
"I understand, you're just uncomfortable. You don't wanna have the uncomfortable, hard conversation. I get it, I do, but at the
Mhm.
same time, there's a big difference between cancer and the cold, Like, you
Right.
gotta tell the truth about
Yes.
that, or even
Yes.
something like ALS. Let's explain that to the best we
Yeah, for
can
sure.
to a kid so that they can
Mhm.
understand almost nobody gets ALS, Like,
Mhm.
this isn't something you have to even when my grandma died, so
Right,
my
right.
children's great-grandma, I was like, "Hey, we're healthy. Everyone here is healthy. Grandma was this
Mhm.
age and she had cancer and she also didn't catch it in time. Some cancers are treatable. Hers
Mhm.
wasn't because she didn't go to the doctor. So all those factors combined, that's what happened. We're all safe." And they
Yep.
respond to that. But that's ultimately what they want to know. Am I safe? Are you safe? I can't lose
Exactly.
you.
Yep.
So are we okay here?
Yep. Right, and giving that reassurance.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we have other people where we have loved ones that have cancer and someone in our neighborhood, and we were able to talk with her about that. And, because she noticed, whoa, her hair is gone. What happened?
Oh,
And things like
yeah.
that. They see the
Mhm.
change and having those conversations so they're not caught off guard or they're not being offensive, or anything like
There's
that,
that too,
too.
yeah.
So, yes, our kids are so much more aware than we really give them credit, and it's a disservice to pretend like we're fine or that everything is okay, like you said, that incongruency when they can see that it's not.
Mhm. Yeah,
Mm,
I really had to make some tough decisions in those early days after losing my son because, um, I wanted to shield her from some parts of it, but I
mhm,
knew that I couldn't do too much of that because she would be isolated then, Like, because my daughter so I have
mhm,
a 23-year-old, the son we lost was almost 19, and then she's 11,
mm.
and
Okay.
he was an 18-year-old boy. So when friends of his started coming over, which I let them in his space and, we sat in there and whatever. And then even like his little second family, his best friend's family who loved him so much, they came over. Um, there was so many inappropriate conversations had in front of her. There really were, like to
Mm,
where I'd be cringing inside, but I had to make a decision to either isolate her or explain it
Mm,
later. And so
sure,
that's kind of what I
sure.
did because I wanted it would be better for her to have information that we can process together versus being in another
Yep.
room where she's probably overhearing all of it anyway. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
And so
Mhm.
I had to make really tough decisions about that because obviously I want to shelter her and protect her, but then there's other parts that
Mhm.
she wasn't allowed to be a part of,
Yeah.
but for the
Oh,
most
yeah.
part she helped plan the funeral, like, she was involved in
Yeah.
most of it because I felt like it was right at that weird age, but I knew that trying to protect her would do the exact opposite if I took
Mhm.
it too far.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, this is her brother, right?
Right,
So
right.
and having her be a part of that process can be very healing as well, to feel like I'm contributing, right? I'm helping, I'm useful, right? And
Yeah,
that as a parent, you still value me, right? Because that's huge too, where, when we lose a child and there's other children there, sometimes that parent can withdraw and forget that
yes.
I have other children to also, like you said, give that love and attention to, because I'm trying to figure out what's going on inside of me. So it showed her also that, hey, I matter, right?
Yeah.
Even though this just happened, I'm still important to you. And he wasn't more important than I am, and all of that too. So
Well, the
there's a lot
way
of
that
those meta
children
messages.
take a message that they are
Yes.
interpreting and then just run it through that
Yes.
little shitty filter of theirs because,
Yep.
man, your subconscious is so mean while when you're growing up because it's always going to take the negative perspective. It's going to take the
Mhm.
worst case scenario of anything you encounter because that's the only way it knows how to keep you alive is catastrophe. So it's going to go,
Mhm.
where is the danger? And make danger where there is none. So that's what's sad
Yeah.
about kids is they're programming all the time. Everything they're taking in their environment
Oh yeah.
every minute of every day, and it's all negative unless you are so intentional about
Yes.
positive and creating a space where they are able to speak about what they're
Mhm.
thinking when those thoughts start.
Mhm.
But I even had to learn that for myself because this is obviously I'd never lost a child before, so I didn't anticipate some of the stuff, but, I remember a couple of
No.
times kinda spiraling, I would start thinking about stuff that we would no longer get to do with him or whatever, and just panic. I mean,
Mhm.
the feeling I could almost go into a full-blown panic attack, but I just got it out of my head
Mhm.
immediately, and so I've been trying to, train my family, "Let's get the shit out. Don't sit there thinking. Talk.
Right.
Talk it out. Talk,
Right.
talk, 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 talk all the time, no matter what it is."
Yes.
And it feels so much better when it's not circling around in your head. Get
Mhm.
it out of your mouth, and then we will
Mhm.
feel better. So that's another thing that we've been working on with her too. She's not great at it.
Mhm.
She's an intensely private person, but we're working on it.
Yeah, yeah, what was cool too, so around the time that I lost my friend, I was, working on a journal, and I published a guided journal, and my daughter saw that whole process. She helped me pick out colors and, different things like that. Um, so she learned about how journaling can be helpful in processing. She got one
Yeah.
of my old journals that I hadn't really written in much, and I saw her in the corner one day doing some writing, or we wrote a couple
Oh.
DBT skills in her journal, 5 4 3 2 1, and different things just to help ground herself. So sometimes she'll say, "Mom, can we have a therapy session?"
Oh my
So
god,
her
I love that.
so her
That
and
is
I will
so
talk,
precious.
and yeah, she's like, "I know I'm the only kid you give therapy to." I'm like, "You're right, because I don't do kids." As we were talking but yes,
You
like, we
are
need to
very
teach
right,
our kids
Lily.
that it's
Mommy doesn't like other
yes, that it's
kids.
healthy, right? I love kids, just not for therapy.
Mhm.
But yes, teaching them that, yes, it's okay to feel. Right? I think sometimes we can unintentionally minimize their feelings, like, because, yes, in
Mhm.
our world, a friend not sitting by you today is not the end of the world. For them, it is, right?
Right.
So we don't want to
Uh-huh.
minimize those feelings, even if it may seem small to us, because for them it's a really big deal.
Mhm.
So validating those feelings and then helping them discover, how do I deal with it, rather than just minimizing those. Oh, girl, that's all. when you're older, you'll realize that's nothing. No, that's not actually
Mhm.
helpful, right?
Not really,
So,
no.
no, it doesn't work that way.
Everybody does some form of that until they figure that out. Like, I'm glad that
I
I
know.
learned that a long time ago, but it's so annoying, because I have very vivid memories of it happening to me, but and
Mhm.
that's why we walk around thinking we're too much.
Mhm. Yep,
So
yep, 'cause that's
frustrating.
the meta message we've been told. Yeah.
Absolutely. Too much
Mhm.
and not enough all at the same time.
Yeah, and won't even get into boys, on that side too, that there's only a couple emotions you can express, or with crying, only if it's sports related,
Mhm,
you know,
mhm.
can you cry rather than that being a healthy expression, a normal thing to be sad, to be happy, to be disappointed, to be any of those things. All of that is normal, but it all gets demonized if it's not anger or aggression.
Yep, absolutely.
Mhm.
Okay, so you
Mhm.
have a practice now with your husband?
I do, yes. So it's called Soul Journey Therapy and Coaching
I
Services.
love that. That's a great name.
Yeah, thank you.
Where can we find you?
So we have our website, which is souljourneyproject.com. We're also on Instagram, we're on Facebook at Soul Journey Project. If you go on our website, you can sign up to get our newsletter. We send out, really helpful information. We talked about, divorces. We've talked about relationships, personal accountability, and so many more coming down the track. Healthy intimacy, holistic intimacy. We did that one for Valentine's Day, that it's not
Oh.
physical side. There's so much more to intimacy than just touch. So yes, we would love to connect with you. We'd love to support you. We'd love to answer your questions on our website. We do respond if you fill out a contact form. And we're here to really help you on your journey.
Well, I love that, and I will make sure to include all of your links in my show notes. And I've loved having you
Okay.
here today. Thank you so much for being on.
It was so nice to meet you. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Good, me too. Okay, I'm going to press stop if you'll hang out for just one sec.
Thanks for coming to Emotionally Unavailable. If you haven't already, like, subscribe, and share. Emotionally unavailable. All right, that's it from me. So make sure that you check out the show notes for links. And until next time, let's all just keep swimming.
INDEPE and cut.